Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. I've been so excited to host today's panel. I think there's so much energy and excitement that's been happening in night trains and long-haul services that I thought it would be super fun to bring some of the most innovative players up on the stage and just have a little conversation about the state of the market and what each of the players are sort of up to. So hopefully we'll keep it as free-flowing as possible. I think from a differentiation perspective, there's such incredible opportunities in night rail and in long-haul services, and so hopefully we can explore that a little bit. So first, I'd like to introduce my panelists. If maybe we could just go down the row, and each of you guys could introduce yourselves and your roles.
Bjarni, skipper, SJ. Very happy to be here. Thank you very much, Chris. SJ is a fully commercial, state-owned national railway company in Sweden.
Nice. Welcome.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Elmer from Buuren, European sleeper, Netherlands-based night train operator, and we have just launched our first service, Brussels, Amsterdam, Berlin, in May. And great to be here. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Romero. I am Senior Director of Revenue Management at Amtrak. For those not familiar with Amtrak, we provide rail service to about 500 U.S. cities, offering products ranging from unreserved high-density corridors to long-haul service and high-speed rail in the Northeast. And on an annualized basis, we do about 30 million passengers, about 4 million on long-haul service.
Great. Awesome. Welcome, guys. Elmer, let's start with you. You represent the emerging startup sector of night trains. Could you talk a little bit about the genesis of what research you did initially, and what was sort of the kernel of idea that you had, and the services you built around that?
Well, I think the main reasoning behind the night train is that we need to have a good alternative for aviation and car. And we always presume that the distance that you can cover by train in Europe is around about 800 kilometers maximum. And in order to increase that radius and make sure that we can use the train also for larger distances, it makes sense to travel at night, because it's been proven that people are willing to travel at night. Of course, we've done our demand forecasts and everything. So we have also figured out that there's plenty of routes that can be served by the night train. Yeah.
How did you start with Brussels to Berlin?
Do you want to have a short or a long version? Well, the reason for picking this route, maybe that's good to say, is that of course it makes sense that night trains, even if they are operated by private operators, are part of a network. So it makes sense to see where the gaps in the network are, and we figured out that on the route towards the east, the night train had gone, and it would be reasonable to bring it back. So that was the main reason for us to go this way.
Great. Bjarni, you come from a much more traditional background. SJ has a myriad of services in Sweden and adjacent countries. Long haul, you already had night trains throughout Sweden, as well as intercity commuter. Your night is an entirely new concept. Where did it come from, and what was the thinking that went into it?
Well, rail travel is expanding its markets in terms of geographic distance, travel times, gaining market shares from routes and destinations that previously have been completely dominated by air. We have seen a rapid growth in interest for international travel previous to the pandemic, halted during the pandemic, but took off quite good after the pandemic. So, I mean, there is a big market there. When this opportunity presented itself for us to establish a night train service to the northern parts of Germany, it was quite an easy decision.
Nice. Trey, long-haul trains have been a part of Amtrak's core mission since founding. Like on our side, we spend so much time working with you guys on ancillary offerings and upgrades in the Northeast Corridor, where most of the actual travelers. But what role do the long-haul trains play all the way across the country, north-south?
I mean, like you said, from our founding, we've viewed long-haul service as sort of a essential service, one that not only connects communities but drives economic growth. And I think, as you've sort of highlighted, it fills a gap. These are widely dispersed communities with few other options, and there's a market there that we can actually really help drive essential service and benefit for. So beyond just the sort of business case, there is sort of a greater good focus that we do with our long haul service that we are focused on and we really like. So we see it being a permanent part of our sort of national offering for rail service.
Great, great. And my next question's for both Bjarni and Elmer. What have you learned since launching the services? Like, how's it going?
You start. I start. Okay, I start. Yeah, we've learned a lot, and actually, it's good to just get started and see what happens. We knew that it was going to be complicated, and it's more than that. What really is noticeable is that it's really complex to organize. We also have seen that there's a huge demand, especially, of course, in the high season. And but it's really challenging to keep it up and running with the old rolling stock that we're honestly using. So now to scale up, that will be the next challenge. But it's been pretty positive so far.
Nice.
Well, I'm not sure what I should say here, actually.
Everything.
Well, we've had quite a hard and bumpy ride, I might say. It's a year ago we started our services, and establishing multi-cross-border night train services is an immense challenge. There are so many obstacles, so much complexity. You have the lack of standardization in all the national properties, such as signaling system, power supplies, and such. These are quite easy. They are well known and predictable, but still very hard. Then you have the fact that you have a non-harmonized vehicle approval process, that the Danish authorities have decided to have their own absurd interpretation of the legislation. So we still don't have all our coaches approved for Denmark, which is quite key if you're going from Sweden to Germany.
Denmark is important in that
Denmark
route.
is important. But the real day-to-day pain is all these track works. And they're mostly done during the night time, of course, and it's a long way from Stockholm to Hamburg to Berlin. So it's more or less every night track work somewhere, which means some kind of adjusted timetable, no synchronization between the countries when doing this, and the process of adjusting the timetables are not pretty smooth. So, well, I'd say to everyone out there, don't try this at home.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And honestly, if we knew then what we know now, I doubt we would have done this. But
we need to hear that. So
Yeah.
that's amazing that you're sharing that.
And really, in order for international night trains to fully capture their potential, these obstacles need to be removed in some way, or you will never actually fully get the potential you have there.
My understanding on the demand side, however, is that there's a lot of excitement and interest in the services.
Yep, it is huge demand, much larger than we anticipated.
Wow, that's amazing. Trey.
Yes.
We hear about like new Acela fleets coming, new Northeast Corridor. How are you guys prioritizing investment in your long haul products?
That's a good question. Yeah, and I think the headlines, are Acela, Northeast Regional, fleet replacement, stuff like that. But I can speak about it from sort of two perspectives. One, in the short run, we are focused on upgrading current product quite a bit. We've just finished sort of a upgrade of onboard amenities, dining service, ancillary components. We're about a quarter of the way through a $28 million investment into what we call refreshing of the existing fleet. We have about 400 cars in service for our long haul. We finished about 100 of them. We're continuing to invest there. We've also thrown money around like labor pools and trying to get more equipment into revenue service. We have quite a bit sitting in sort of need for repair and certain things like that. All of this in the short run to match what you've talked about is the sort of rising demand that we're seeing for sleeper products. We have not realized all of the benefit yet, even though we've been operating sleepers for 50 years. The more long run, and this is, I apologize, I can't speak to too many details on this yet. My communications team would not like this, but we are in the early stages of an RFP to actually replace all of our long-haul fleet. It is pretty exciting. In my 13 years at Amtrak, this is sort of a first. It's sort of a once-in-a-generation, multi-billion-dollar investment. And I apologize, I can't, again, speak to details officially, but it is a very exciting time and sort of, again, reinforces our commitment to long-haul service and the value we see in overnight services. Yeah.
Awesome. At Plusgrade, we focus on upsells and segmentation, and we spend a lot of time thinking in our industries in rail, cruise, air, hotel about differentiation and merchandising upgraded opportunities for travel. Elmer, it's exciting to be working with you now as well. Could you guys talk a little bit about, like, I know with the Urinite product, you have 4 distinct products. Elmer, you have 3 products. Amtrak has really everything from coach seats to family bedrooms. Can you guys talk a little bit about the segmentation you do? Bjarni, I believe that product all rolls under you, so maybe you could talk also a little bit about how you guys are approaching the segmentation and what that looks like.
Well, we have our standard product setup, similar to what we have in our national night trains. A real key in running any night train business is volumes. So you really need to have something for everyone, all needs and all kind of wallets. I mean, you need to have a very broad price range in what you offer, so you can get the willingness to pay from the top market, but also for the backpackers. What we've learned during this last year is we have mainly 2 categories of travelers. We have those who are well known to international travelers, have quite known expectations of what we are offering, and then we noticed that we have attracted quite a lot of unexperienced new travelers to night trains and international traffic, an older public than previously, I'd say, and we really work, and they have much higher expectations of our products. So we really need to make sure that we deliver quality in our products. But we have all range, and you need to have that in a night train product.
Elmer, on your side?
Yeah, I almost wanted to say I have nothing to add, but that's not entirely true. We indeed see that there's quite many people that are willing to pay for private space and comfort. Yeah. The main issue that we have at the moment is that is the smallest category of seats and beds that we can offer because we have only 1 sleeping car available. So we see a huge opportunity also on board that for people to upsell even on board and upgrade to a higher category if only we would have space in that higher category. So I think the potential is there, and we can develop that really in the future. But we would first need to tackle the issue of not having the sleeping cars available. I also agree with the fact that most of the people that use the international train so far were people that already know the train from back home. But we also see the same emergence of new people, and the other thing that is interesting to see is that the less money people pay, the more they expect. So that is, I mean, it's their right, but it's sometimes hard, so we need to really get the basics right at the very least. But you see that people are accepting the old cars that we're using as long as we get the basics right, meaning clean and everything proper. But yeah, it's very challenging to offer to this higher and higher demand and higher demands also.
Great. I had a chance to take the European Sleeper services this week on Monday, and it is a really fun experience. And I was lucky enough to have a private compartment, so I appreciated that I was able to grab one of those. It was absolutely full, so I feel lucky that I was able to snag that. Trey, on your side, maybe a little bit about the segmentation that's happening on your long-haul trains?
I honestly don't know if I have much to add. You guys did a good job of sort of summarizing really the complexities. Now, unfortunately, those complexities never go away, right? Demand is variable and ever-changing, especially post-COVID sort of recovery. I think solving the supply side is always difficult too, trying to keep pace. It's, you know, sort of a sticky product. It's inflexible. It's hard just to spin up new capacity, all of these complexities. But when it comes to retailing, again, it's just about, you know, finding the right price point for the right customer, defining your objective function. And I think you're hitting on a very key point here, which is focusing on the basics. No matter how good your consumer scores are, your feedback score is, really it's not the ancillaries that drive it, it's driving the fundamentals, getting them to their destination on time, and that's really what we capitalize on. And the better we can do that, the higher premiums we can charge, the higher the product's valued, and it really drives good revenue growth. So,
Trey, you guys have been working with us for a couple of years now. What role does post-purchase ancillary upsells have in the long-haul services? Like, again, we focus so much on the Northeast Corridor, but what about the long-haul trains?
yeah, there's quite a few benefits. I think I'll focus on sort of two. One is a little sensitive, so I got to be a little careful talking about it. But the other one is, I don't know if this is totally obvious, which is the quality of the data that we get from the bids themselves. It's provided insight that we wouldn't have had before. So we have coach customers traveling in traditionally maybe daylight segments that are now bidding on a room that we would have never thought about before.
So actually having a room for a day trip rather than the natural thought that somebody would want a sleeper accommodation per se.
Absolutely, and I don't know if everybody caught on to that, but we don't even refer to them as sleepers anymore. We refer to them as private rooms, just to help sort of attract this segment of, you know, we have 3-day trains, so you have entire segments where it's 20 hours, 18 hours during daylight sometimes, and no real overnight component, and there is a market segment for that. And I think, you know, submitted bids of traditional coach passengers, that kind of brought that to light for us, and the willingness and the value that they sort of ascribe to that. Now, I think the other component here, and this is maybe a little more sensitive component, is, look, if you come to sleepers, the problem is sort of a unit count thing from an optimization perspective. You have such limited supply on a per departure basis, demand far outstrips supply, and you have a lot of variability in your demand from seasonality, day of week patterns, O&D permutations, and because of that, from an optimization perspective, forecast error is just part of the equation. And to help maybe prevent spoilage, bids and upgrades are very helpful in that. Now, we're always concentrating on forecast accuracy. Trust me, that's where we're concentrating, but it is nice to have a little bit of a hedge, sort of a parachute to help sort of backfill potential spoilage. So it's very helpful.
Elmer, it brings up an interesting question. I actually just thought of this. You've built a fleet, a small fleet to start, but an increasing fleet of cars that support, you know, sleeping experiences. Based on what Trey said, have you thought about the fact that there are some people, even for days, like to use that rolling stock during the day to provide sort of more private accommodations for people who want to travel in that manner?
I think so far we haven't been really looking into this, but I think the difference is also that we don't have trains, well, hopefully that take 3 days to reach the destination. So it's more like maximum 16 hours. And it would be challenging to offer, like, let's say for the morning or the evening leg, the sleeping accommodation, because if you would want to sell it twice, because that would be the optimum, that we would sell it more than once during the journey, it would mean that we also need to, you know, clean it in between, and that would be quite challenging, but I don't say we shouldn't do it. I have heard, though, from other railway companies, notably the Romanian one, that they have actually during COVID started to sell sleeping accommodation on day trains because people wanted private space, and it was a very successful product. So it, you know, with a bit of creativity, I think it can indeed be done.
Bjarni, you guys have a lot of experience in night trains in Sweden. Are you using your equipment for day travel as well?
No, we haven't. That's a new idea, actually. Usually, you have a disadvantage when it comes to unit costs, since you have so few sellable units compared to a day train. But perhaps there are a willingness to pay for that. We'll look into it.
If we see it, you heard it first.
Yep.
Great. So much fun having you guys. Okay, Bjarni, I think I know what your answer is going to be based on what you said a few minutes ago, but I wanted to go to just down the line and see if each of you have any words of advice to the room on launching night services, long-haul services.
Well, I believe they've mentioned here before, very key and very important is focusing on customer satisfaction, getting the basics right, and that's what we need to improve for the coming years, and getting the supply there because the demand is already there.
Great, and part B would be just don't.
Yeah, well, I don't want to be that harsh, but well, think twice. Actually.
Yeah. Elmer?
Yeah, I think that the best advice I can give is be really patient, because you will run into a lot of struggles and very straightforward things like, if you run an international train and one infrastructure manager wants to send a train via a different border crossing but doesn't tell the other infrastructure manager. That kind of simple things, you need to be aware that this is going to happen and that you need to raise them and teach them how to actually plan trains.
Great. And Trey?
No, I would just echo what's already been stated, focus on the fundamentals. And I think the other sort of key thing is looking at everything through a customer lens. Too often we kind of view things as an operational problem and not necessarily a commercial problem, and just focusing on the customer. That's probably the only piece of advice I'd give. Yeah.
Great. We're so grateful to have the three of you on the stage, and we wish you great success. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.